Welcome to Inspire by Cyndia. My name is Cyndia, your host, and I am here with the amazing Alani Almanza. Alani, how are you today?
I'm great here on the other side of the planet in Hawaii.
Awesome. I remember talking to you a few weeks ago, and you were saying Hawaii, and you were telling us a little bit about Hawaii and how Hawaii is not just hello and goodbye.
Well, yeah, that's aloha. The word
Okay.
aloha has much deeper meaning than just hello and goodbye, and it's a, a framework that we live by here in Hawaii. And I have learned through my lifetime, being born and raised here, that it had much more of an impact than I was aware of until recently.
Okay, awesome. And can you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So, as I said, I was born and raised in Hawaii, but both my parents came from Nebraska. So, I'm very grateful that the universe guided them to Hawaii and I was able to be born and raised here. I've worked in a number of professional occupations in education, in retail management, in nonprofit, and really found my forte in training along those lines. And that ultimately led to, in my recent retirement, me being able to write a book and also start my own wellness business.
Okay, nice. And can you tell us a little bit about your book? What's the name of the book?
Well, I just happened to, oh, I don't, it's not a video, so I can't show you. The name of the book is Under a Full Moon and a Guiding Star. I wish I could show you because it has a beautiful cover of a turtle in a wave under a full moon off of a beach in Hawaii. You can find it on Amazon if you want to go check it out. And
Hmm.
it is a um, what was the word? My one of my best uh, quotes from a friend was, "It's a memoir of finding empowerment and wellness, and it's a guidebook for self care and wellness."
What in reading this book, what is the best part in the book for you that we can gather?
I think as I began to tell the story of my journey to self care and wellness, I incorporate what I call alakai lessons, and alakai is the Hawaiian word for guide. So, lessons that I've learned throughout my life in finding my way to self care and wellness. And so that's the third part of the book, but the lessons are highlighted throughout the story in the first two sections.
Okay. And what drove you to write this book on health and self-care?
It was seed was planted about 25 years ago when I was finishing up my master's degree, and at the same time, my youngest son, at the age of 19, was diagnosed with a brain tumor. And as I worked and traveled through that journey with him, realized that in order to continue my education, complete my master's degree, continue working full time, and continue to support him and my family, I really needed to find ways of self care to keep myself well. I could see that stress was starting to have an impact on my wellness.
Mm.
And so I actually wrote a paper about how the experience of just being thrust into that cancer world was like entering a foreign country and learning a foreign language. And my professor told me when she read it that it would someday be a chapter of a book I would write. And so the seed
Mm.
was planted there. And over the years has been cultivated. And finally, when I got to retirement, and actually, I had planned to launch my wellness business, facilitating retreats, but I retired in April of 2020. So everything was shut down, and that didn't go off as planned. And so
Mhm.
I took it as a sign from the universe that I needed to just take a step back and slow down and find what my purpose was in going forward. And throughout that year, was doing a blog, and eventually came to meet a woman who told me that I should write a book. And
Mm.
that little seed sprouted, and from there found a wonderful writing coach that helped me accomplish that in a year's time, which to me was amazing.
Yeah.
I think it was last February when she told me, I think we're done writing. And I was just like,
Wow.
wow, yeah, I'm done.
How
Okay, now what's next?
Yeah. And how much time that did it take? Did it take chapters of your life throughout years or
Well, I am a journaler. I have been journaling almost my whole adult life. And so my journals were part of the writing that I started with in collecting pieces for the book. And
Mm.
as that came together, there's some new writing that's added in there. So it's a collection of the last 20 years, 25 years, that has culminated. And now it's the next step is, where do I go from here?
Yeah. Okay. And how has your life perspective changed after moving forward, after writing the book and moving forward?
Oh boy. Part of the perspective just in writing the book was understanding that everybody has a story to be told. And so many of
Mhm.
us are afraid to tell that story or don't know how to start. But every one of us has a unique story that someone out there needs to hear. And so for me, that was the first thing, is helping others tell their story
Mhm.
by telling mine. And so hopefully I can influence and impact others. First of all, to be brave enough to tell their story. And then
Mhm.
hopefully that the lessons that I share in the book are having an impact. And I'm glad to say that they are. I've had several reviews. One that just really touched me was one woman who's she just turned 50. And after reading the
Mhm.
book, she said, I really want my 20-year-old daughter to read this.
Mm.
So just knowing that it's impacting generations and not just my peers.
Absolutely. That is awesome. And um can you describe uh can you describe something in the book that can help us, the ones that's afraid, to put their story out there, or any advice that you can help us with?
I think one of the things when I actually do a workshop on telling your story, and it's to be vulnerable, to be willing to be vulnerable, that it might be messy to start with, but the message that you have is in the mess. And so if you're willing to share the messy parts,
Mm-hmm.
share the emotional parts. That was one thing, the woman that connected me with my writing coach, she said, you'll need to have a box of Kleenex on hand as you go through this process.
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah.
Yeah.
So so you wrote the book and you needed Kleenex to clear out
Yeah.
your face because of different moments in the book.
hmm
Um, what would you share what would you share with the people that can help us take the first step if we're afraid to do something and become vulnerable?
I think find someone who's willing to hold your hand. For me, that was a big step in finding someone that I connected with, that resonated with me, that was willing to walk the journey with me, but not just someone that's going to, keep patting you on the back, but someone that also is there that you trust to give you a little push.
Mm.
Um,
W
that that's the first thing, is to have someone, a mentor or a coach, that can help you start that process. in any process, whether it's writing a book or starting on a wellness journey, a new path, I always talk about simple steps. And that oftentimes we try to, either climb too fast or take too big a step and end up being defeated or falling and give up. And so it
Mm.
starts simple, start small. And one of the first things I tell people in helping them on their new journey is breathe. That we've all forgotten how to breathe, and
Yeah.
that our breath is the first and last thing that encompasses our life. And it's so vital. And yet we've forgotten how to breathe, that we're either rushing so fast that we aren't breathing in a regular rhythm, or we're holding our breath in a moment of crisis. So those are some key lessons that I talk about in my book. One of the first lessons I had in understanding how important my breath was when that same son who had cancer was 5. He was hit by a car in front of our house. And as I was
Mm.
running out the door to him, my neighbor stepped in front of me, grabbed me by the shoulders, and said, "Take a breath."
Mm.
And I just remember that so vividly, that brief moment allowed me to sort of get grounded, refocus, get centered so that I could really attend and be there for my son. So that was one of the first big breathing lessons I had. And so it just kept surfacing over and over as how important our breath is. And then, of course, when he was going through his cancer journey, um, that was like a roller coaster. And I'm not a fan of roller coasters. And you can imagine, on roller coasters, you're either holding your breath or you're letting it out in a big scream. And sometimes that's necessary, but sometimes we need to find that even breath to bring us back into balance.
Yeah. Yeah. As small as that may sound, taking a breath, it just sounds like nothing. Take a breath, but that is so big just to stop and breathe. So I
Yeah.
like that you put that out there because breathing is really important.
Yeah.
And absolutely. Um, and what advice would you give someone struggling to find their path to spiritual? Was it part of a spiritual thing when you were breathing, or uh, was it just breathing?
Um, for me, it's always been a spiritual journey as well. And one of my favorite quotes, I think I told you when we spoke before, is we're not human beings having a spiritual experience. We're spiritual beings having a human experience, which sometimes
Mm.
is really challenging. But if we remember that we are that spiritual being, that can be a great guide. And so for me, it's always been that spiritual process, um, regardless or absent of religion or doctrine, that recognizing that we are each that unique divine creation. And so finding your value and your worth in that. What was the question again? Because I think I had something else I wanted to add.
Yeah, sure. I was asking about your spiritual. Um, how did you uh, deal with your spiritual self? Was that part of breathing?
Okay.
You
Yeah.
said taking a breath. Hmm.
Yeah. Um, yeah. So that spiritual journey is part of what I've written about too, is that understanding that spiritual presence or that spiritual being within myself helped me find balance.
Hmm.
And so some of the things that I've explored in that spiritual journey have been um, the middle way, which is yin and yang. If you look at the symbol for yin and yang, the line right between the two sections, that's the middle
Hmm.
way. And that's the really
Mm.
important part, because each one has a little bit of the other in it. But where we really find the
Hmm.
balance is in that middle way. The other one was that um, there's something called ikigai. It's a Japanese practice or a Japanese word, and it's finding your purpose in life, but
Mhm.
in balance with what you're good at, and what the world needs, and in some cases what the world will compensate you for. And so whether that's monetarily or in fulfillment and whatever rewards, but finding the balance in those areas is your ikigai. And so
Mm.
for me, that's been part of the journey as well.
Okay, finding balance.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and you said ikigai?
Yes,
Okay.
Ikigai, the Japanese term. Yeah, and
Okay. And
there's a wonderful book on that. That let me just look at the author here. It's the Ikigai, the Japanese Secret to a Long and Happy Life by Hector Garcia and Francesca Miralles.
okay. Okay, thank you for that. Um Now, with the book, you were saying part of self-love. We heard that you said breathing is part of finding balance within self-love. Do you have any more wisdom of profound, maybe quote or perspective that you can give us from your book or any other?
I thank you for calling it profound. I would love to think that it's profound. Um, but can I read a passage from my book? Would that be okay?
Absolutely.
Okay. So this is another, I think, even maybe before breathing, is understanding the art of being in gratitude and abundance.
Mm.
I came to an awareness that abundance comes in many forms, and we have to train ourselves to notice it. Somewhere along my path, I became keenly aware of how expressing gratitude on a daily basis could alter the journey ahead in a positive way. Practice and fortitude brings us into being with gratitude and abundance. It paves the path with smooth stones that would protect us from falling. My daily prayer has become, I am grateful for the abundance I have received. I am grateful for the abundance I am about to receive. And I am grateful for the abundance I am able to share. That daily practice is part of the art of being.
Nice. Nice. I like that because, yes, we have to be grateful in order to even see life through ourselves and go through the spiritual and the natural is being grateful and breathing. Yes. So I really like that. So is it written as a journal type or is it
It's written more, primarily the first two sections are a memoir.
okay?
And then I reference the third section, which is the lessons.
Hmm. What's your favorite lesson in the whole book?
Hmm. Let's see. I think I'm gonna. Oh, it's so hard to choose. One of the things I started, because I said I was a journaler. I think I'm going to choose the Discovery Journal lesson, and
Mhm.
just the art of journaling. And one of my favorite tools is what I call a Discovery Journal, and it's a combination of resources, journaling resources that I've used over the years, including photo journals, goal posters, vision boards. And so
Mm.
with them, I create with a composition notebook, whether it's blank or lined, whatever preference people have. I fill the cover with pictures and affirmations that inspire me and motivate me. And sometimes I'll do them for different occasions or purposes, not just for the year. And it
Mhm.
becomes a really good visualization tool. Um, so that leads me to visualization, which is another way to start building daily habits and really understanding the power of visualization.
Yeah. Okay. What if some of the audience, do you think we should be journaling every day or if we don't journal, how what are some advice you can give us if I'm not much of a journal? I journal sometimes when things are really, really hard. I find myself journaling more than often, but I don't journal on an everyday basis.
Yeah.
So what advice would you
Yeah,
give?
it's really a personal preference, but if people want to start, one of a simple way to start is with a gratitude journal. And
Mm,
simply, however, there are so many out there on the market. You can buy a fancy one, or you can create a little of your own little own journal in a notebook. But simply by starting with 3 things that you're grateful for in the morning, and
mhm,
or 3 things you're grateful for before you go to bed. Personally,
mm,
I do it at the end of the day, because sometimes, in the morning, it's easier to be grateful about a new day and new possibilities. At the end of the day, sometimes that hasn't been such a great day, and so it's a little more challenging to find the gratitude. So I think for me, that challenge is, how do I find gratitude even in the hard moments? And if
mm,
people ask, say, well, how do you, what if it's been a really hard day and I don't think I have anything to be grateful for? I said, you can simply start with the alphabet, start with ABC. And
mhm,
it sounds really contrite, but I say, if you can't think of anything, start with vegetables and fruits and vegetables. Apples. I love apples. I love green apples.
mhm.
Bananas. I'm grateful for bananas, but only the ones that grow in Hawaii. C, cherries. My favorite cherries are Bing cherries. So it leads you into a little bit more. It's like you can start with those simple words that lead you to something that you connect with, and that you're grateful for. Um, and then other types of journaling, like you said, some people, it's just a place where they really, that heartache needs to come out, and that's okay, to use journals that way. Another way to journal is what they call just free writing, and morning pages. So to just sit down in the morning and write what's on your mind, you know, even if it's a to-do list, like just keep going until you have 3 pages of stuff. And eventually, and I did that for a while, and I started to see patterns that emerged, um, over and over. And so I could then focus on, well, why do those patterns keep emerging? Or why do those topics keep coming up? Is it something in my life that I need to focus on or address or change? So that can be another way, just to, you know, mind dump on in a journal
Yeah.
and see what happens.
Yeah, I like that you said that because I didn't start journaling till I read the book, The Artist's Way.
Yes,
I believe
that's
her
it.
name
The
is
morning
Julia.
pages.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yes, I heard you said morning pages, and
Yeah.
that's when I really learned how to journal because I used to be like, I don't know what to write.
Yep.
So I, even though I'm not consistent in journaling, but I know if I start my morning with morning pages, I'm writing and I'm journaling.
Yeah.
So yeah, I like that you said that. Absolutely.
Yeah. But
Um,
then, like I said, go back
mhm.
and look at those morning pages and see if there's something that keeps popping up that, that might be challenging you, or something that's great in your life that keeps popping up and you want to recognize and be grateful for.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So we have to breathe. We have to find that self love, find
Yep.
that self love in breathing, meditating, and journaling. Those are
Hmm.
the four important the four important things of everyone everyday life that we all should be doing, men and women. Do you
Yes.
have any other tips?
I think the other part is looking at wellness, in a really holistic way.
Mhm.
Oftentimes it's, focused on the physical part or the mental part, or, um, the emotional part, but there's actually a wellness wheel that has 8 sections, and it looks at even environmental wellness. So really looking at your surroundings. Are
Mm.
your surroundings supporting your wellness?
Yeah.
And is it, there's things like feng shui that, placement of furniture, but there's also, are you looking at, are there toxic substances in your house that might be affecting your wellness? And then
Mhm.
physically, one of my favorite things, and I mentioned them in the book, is an organization called Blue Zones. And
Mhm.
it was a study done on places where they have a large percentage of centenarians, so people living past 100. And what were the commonalities in those communities that led to these people living to be 100 and more? And
Mm.
so they called it the power nine. 9 principles that really, and they've even narrowed it down further, I think now to 5 common threads that really support our wellness, to live long and healthy lives. So not just longer, but healthier.
Yeah.
So yeah, if I'm going to live longer, I want to live activated and well. I don't just want to live long.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. And how old do you care about age, or do you just want to live for how long the universe allow you to be here?
As long as the universe allows me to be here and I can be well. I
Yeah.
Part of what I talk about in the book is also being a caregiver and watching both of my parents, or caring for both of my parents as they aged in illness. And I do not want to age in illness. I want to age in wellness.
Yeah. And you said you had some wellness products. Can you tell us about that?
Sure. So I have partnered with a company called Life Vantage, and
Mhm.
they're at the forefront of what's called nutrigenomics, which is really um, using natural plant-based products to activate our cells' ability to do what they were designed to do when they were created. Um, we've got so much going on in our world that stresses our bodies from the outside in and the inside out. And we can't take enough supplements to overcome all of that oxidation. So
Mhm.
you talk about antioxidants. You'd have to eat 11 pounds of blueberries every day to combat the oxidative stress that hits your body on a daily basis. And while I love blueberries, I don't think I'd like the side effects of 11 pounds of blueberries. And so these products have found some key activators, cellular activators that promote that wellness, that cellular wellness. So if anybody's interested, on my website, alakaiassociates.com, there's a link to my Life Vantage products as well as my book.
Okay. And tell us where we can find you.
So again, it's www.alakaiassociates. So that's ALAKAIASSOCIATES.com.
Okay. And any Instagram and Facebooks
Yes, I have
finding you?
Instagram and Facebook. Facebook, I'm under both Alakai Associates and Lani Almanza. Instagram, you'll find me at Honu Mom 1_.
Mm. Okay.
And Honu is the Hawaiian word for turtle. It was one of my son Jacob's favorite animals, and is very, very much a key part of who I am. So Honu Mom 1_. And I'm also on LinkedIn as Lani Almanza.
Okay. Well, thank you for that. And what inspires you these days?
Oh, what inspires me? That's a great question, because I just did an exercise with a nonprofit that I'm with where we talked about our why. And I don't know if any of your listeners have heard of going 7 layers deep, which Tony Robbins and Dean Graciosi talk about, getting down to the 7th layer of your why. And for me,
Yeah.
it's so that I can be here to share experiences with my children, and especially my grandchildren. I have 6 grandchildren. And so that's why I want to live long and live well,
Yeah.
so that I can share experiences with them and create a world where they can age in wellness and not in illness.
Yeah. That is awesome. Awesome. I appreciate you, Miss Lonnie, being here, sharing the wisdom and giving us those 5 keys. And you said your book is on Amazon. And
Yes, correct.
okay, and what was the name of the book one more time?
Under a Full Moon and a Guiding Star.
Under a Full Moon and Guiding Star with a beautiful turtle picture on there.
Yes, it does.
Okay. I thank you again for being on my podcast. And
Oh,
is there anything else you would like to share with us?
no, I'm so grateful that you had me on, and I hope that I have inspired or impacted some of your listeners, and that they will reach out and get in touch with me.
Absolutely. Well, I can say you absolutely inspired me to go back to the pages and even breathe a little more because, as little as that may sound, is just so big to breathe, meditate, and be here for us because it's
Yeah,
loving yourself first. So I
yeah.
thank you again for being on the podcast.
Thanks,
Mm.
India.
All right.